printed 5,000 flyers with her name and information and photos on it. They're plastering those all over. But of course, those kind of flyers are all over at that time because people are trying to find everybody that they can't locate.
There were a lot of missing people.
Yeah. Ron then sees, wait, there's reporters everywhere. I'm going to go talk to the reporters and I'm going to get their help to get this story out there to find my wife. Except he quickly discovers that the reporters are not interested as soon as they find out that she went missing on the 10th. So he's kind of frustrated and he gets a bright idea. He calls Sneha's brother, John, and he says, hey, John, talk to the reporters, but don't tell them what day she went missing.
As a totally off-topic aside, what kind of jerk parents are like, okay, daughter, we're going to name you Sneha. Okay, son, you can be John.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a very traditional name.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I was wondering about that, too. It's possible that he was born in the U.S. He was younger than her. And then
that's true.
Or it's possible that he changed his name.
Ages are relative to each other. I know she was born in India. He may have been born in the States. It's hard to say. Yeah. Or, as Joe said, he may have just gone by John.
Yeah, also true.
But
sorry.
But the thing is, the plan didn't go according to plan.
Yeah, because he embellished a little bit.
As soon as John got on camera, he took the story even farther and told the reporters that on the morning of the 11th, he was on the phone with his sister when American Airlines 11 hit the tower, the North Tower, and she said, I've got to go. I've got to help. Which is what a doctor would do, and she hung up, and he said that was the last time that he talked to her.
Yeah.
Totally not true.
A little bit of embellishment there, but understable.
Totally. Genuinely not true, right?
Genuinely not true.
Oh, yeah,
he said, just kidding.
Yeah. Okay. Well, later on he admitted it was not true, but it backfired so badly.
Yeah.
It blew up in their faces because, of course, the New York Police Department won't do anything. I mean, they're inundated with a whole mess of work to take care of now, but they won't look into it because he said she went to the towers. At the time, Ron had filed a missing persons report for Sneha. There were 9,000 missing person reports in New York after everything happened on 9/11. There was bad reporting in the police department. They found out multiple people were listed multiple times, all this stuff, and there was a few fraudulent cases of missing person reports, but they didn't do anything because they just presumed that she was in the tower.
Yeah. I mean, not only fraudulent, but also, you have all of those people who freak out. They're, in Oregon and their daughter is in New York City and the towers collapsed and they couldn't get a hold of her the 3 times they called on the exact day within, 2 hours, even though they heard that the phones were jammed and she must be dead somewhere. So she's, and it turns out she calls them an hour later and says, hi, Mom, Dad, I'm fine. And they just don't bother to call and get her taken off.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. It's total panic mode.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, total panic mode. I get why people do it. But unfortunately, it made things so much harder for the NYPD.
Oh, yeah.
The family, they know, or they believe at this point, that Sneha is not in the ruins of the North Tower or the South Tower. The family went ahead and they hired a private investigator to try and figure out all of Sneha's actions on that day, on the day of the 10th. They hired a guy by the name of Ken Gallant. He was formerly of the FBI.
Sure.
And he did a ton of legwork in trying to find her. And he found some great stuff, but I was also a little surprised. He recommended to the family, who then flew this person in from Pennsylvania, a psychic.
Always
which
a useful thing to do.
To me, it raised a little bit of a red flag on him. But what he did find is he was able to track down video footage of her. There are 2 different pieces of video of her from that day after she left the apartment. One of which, as we talked about just briefly before, is the video of her at Century 21, where she's shopping. When she's on the video, she's in the coat section trying on different coats. There is also a video from the inside of the apartment building's entry on the 11th.
But that one is not confirmed her, right?
It is not confirmed her. What it is the sun is shining through the windows in the entry enough that it is bleaching out, according to what Gallant and Ron are saying, to the point that they can't get a lot of details. They see a woman, she's got the same hairstyle, about the same build, appears to be wearing kind of the same outfit and has the same mannerisms as Sneha, but they can't confirm that. But this woman walks up to the elevator, pushes the button, waits a minute, and then turns around and walks out of the building. The timestamp on that video roughly corresponds to when the North Tower was hit.
Yeah.
So in a way, it supports the idea that she ran to the tower after everything happened.
Yeah, it does, except it wasn't necessarily her because she wasn't carrying any bags. Whereas she should have been carrying bags because she still hadn't brought home all the stuff that she'd bought.
That is true if she had come straight from the store, but we're talking...
She went somewhere and spent
12 plus hours later, she might have left them somewhere.
Yeah.
I totally get where you're going with that, Joe, is that there's this piece where if she bought all this stuff at Century 21, where's it at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this person theoretically should be carrying those same articles that were purchased.
You would think. Yeah.
Well, unless she was a young woman, right? She was in her 20s.
She was 31, I believe.
So, yeah. So you go out because she would have gone out, right? If she'd stayed at somebody's house, she probably was out late. So you go out, you wake up the next morning, you're kind of hungover, and you just say to your brother or friend who you see all the time, you say, "I'm gonna go home. I'll get this stuff later from you next time I see you or whatever. I'm just going to walk home, try and clear my mind or whatever." And you make it back to your apartment and you don't have bags. I mean, I think that's a totally reasonable thing.
It's entirely plausible.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was buying it for a gift or, there's a lot of reasons she could not have that stuff.
Yeah. No, and as far as her turning and leaving about when the plane hit the tower, that also doesn't really point towards it being Sneha either.
No, but
anybody hearing that would leave. Yeah,
that enormous noise would go outside to see what it was.
Yes, and so if she hears that enormous noise and she goes outside, she sees gets an idea what's going on. Based on her training, we can presume that she would have run to assist.
It seems like, though, that the investigator and Ron, how large a apartment complex are we talking? Like thousands of people? Hundreds of people? Do you know? It seems like the sort of thing you would circulate and say, "Hey, is this you?" to rule other people out.
Here's the odd bit. The odd bit is that the PI did all of his work and he gave a report to Ron. Ron won't release that report. So this footage of this woman in the entry, I can't, nobody's seen it.
Yeah.
You can't see the video, you can't see stills from it because he's got it under lock and key.
That's odd because it's not like he owns it.
Yeah.
He paid for it, so...
But he still doesn't own it.
Well, he doesn't own the footage, but I'm sure that by the time all this came out, the apartment building probably didn't have the footage anymore. But again, this is another thing that I'm going to call out as a red flag. This stands out to me as a really odd bit of information.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There must have been something kind of bad in that report if he didn't want to release it.
Would lead me to think that.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving on down with the events. We're still moving kind of a chronological order of what goes on with the story. Initially, Sneha was listed as one of the victims of the World Trade Center collapse. But because there was no evidence to substantiate that, in terms of nobody could physically say they saw her go there and they didn't find a body, she was removed from that list in January of 2004. And the law in New York says that the date of a person's death will be set at 3 years from the last time they were seen alive when they go missing.
Sure.
Which means that officially, after she had been removed from the list, her date of having died was September 10th, 2004. Ron appealed the decision. He tried to keep her on the list, but another judge denied that appeal in November of 2005. That prevented him from having access to the Victims' Compensation Fund, which had been set up to help people whose family members had been killed, from a financial perspective. According to Ron, he wanted access to that fund because he wanted to set up a memorial fund in his wife's name.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. She's a 31-year-old woman who's going to be a doctor, very young, high-paid profession. He stood to get about $3 to $4 million.
Hey, what the heck? I'd do it.
It's a hefty little chunk of money.
That's a sizable bit of cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He never got anything out of the Victims' Compensation Fund. In 2008, a panel of judges overturned the ruling in 2005 and changed her official date of death back to September 11th, 2001. But by that time, of course, the fund had long since closed to taking applications.
Of
so
course it had, yeah.
He couldn't get anything from it. According to Ron, the money didn't matter. What he wanted was his wife's name to be recognized among the victims. So she is now officially listed as one of the 2,753 people who died that day. Not counting hijackers. This is American citizens only.
Yeah, the hell with the hijackers.
Well, yeah, so he at least got her on that. And at the memorial, her name is listed.
It's interesting that he said that he just wanted her name on the list, even though they got a private investigator and none of them really believed that she was in the rubble initially.
I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. There's a lot of flags in this story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of things that I have to raise an eyebrow at. I had a list at home as I was going through my research. Like, wait, that didn't get checked off. That didn't get checked off. This is circled in red marker. What's going on here? But we're now going to take a bit of a turn in our story.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. So officially, the NYPD, they think that she died in the towers. Collapse.
Kind of.
After everything settles down, they do their own investigation. The NYPD, in their investigation, they presented some details about Sneha that aren't flattering and her family does not like, and they constantly are denying and putting down. According to the NYPD, she had a drinking problem and she possibly was leading a double life.
What's a drinking problem, though? No, I mean that sincerely. I mean that, for instance, a woman of my age, technically, if you consume 3 or more alcoholic beverages a week, you overconsume alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know a single person who drinks that's my age that drinks that little.
Yeah.
I just don't. And so I think it'd be totally reasonable if I went missing for some reason that, the Portland police could say, well, she did have a drinking problem, because I drink way more than that. When they say things like that, I have a hard time. I usually take it with a pretty huge grain of salt, because if they're like, well, she was at the bar 4 times a week and had 2 shots every night, well, okay, people can do that and be totally reasonably healthy.
It's very funny that you say that, because I've always thought my fiance drinks cider or mixed drinks, but she'll have 1 or 2 a week, and it always was weird to me. Honey, you want a drink or something? She'd say, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's weird to me.
And at first, I got used to it. She doesn't drink that much. But at first, I was like, this is really weird.
This is nuts,
I am
man.
not going to be really that funny if you don't have any more to drink.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I think that's one of the things, we talk about that sometimes, where people say, or the investigation reveals, quote unquote, that this person had a drinking problem, and I always just kind of want to take that with a huge grain of salt.
Although it does appear that her drinking actually interfered with her job at Cabrini.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that, but I just wanted to mention that, or future, past, and current mysteries.
Yes, absolutely good point. The NYPD, this is what one of the things that they're using in their investigation to say that she's got that problem that we were just talking about, is she was told in early 2001 that her contract, her internship with Cabrini would not be renewed, and the reasons were for tardiness and alcohol-related issues.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. All right.
Yeah, that does lead you to think maybe there is something going on.
Yeah.
Bad. Now, she did land another job.
Yeah.
She got another internship in internal medicine at St. Vincent's Medical Center, which was on Staten Island, which is what Joe was kind of talking about briefly earlier.
Well, she does seem like she was smart.
She had it together.
She was a minority female, so
That's such a big.
I mean,
point,
it just
Yeah.
as an honest to God fact.
It is, yeah. Well, plus, I don't want to sound racist, but Indians are pretty damn smart. At least the ones that I've met.
She seemed to be very intelligent,
Yeah.
regardless of her race or sex. She seemed to be intelligent. She never had anything in her work reviews that I can find saying that she did a poor job, other than she had some personal issues, which, let's be honest, who doesn't have personal issues?
Yeah, but not all of us bring it to work.
Oh. Wait, are you saying I'm bringing something to the podcast? Oh, crap.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll talk about my licorice addiction later.
Yes, we will.
Not long after she was let go from Cabrini,
Let go or told she wasn't going to be renewed?
I'm guessing it's after she was no longer there.
Okay.
I'm not
Read
sure.
into that however you want to.
Yeah.
After she was no longer there, she got into a bar fight, or a fight in a bar, I should say, and ended up spending the night in jail. Which, again, we've rationalized a few things so far. So let's rationalize this. Who hasn't found out they were getting fired or gotten fired and said, "I'm going to the bar and I'm drowning in my sorrows in a glass or 7"?
Oh, yeah.
Who hasn't done that? Why are you two looking at me like that?
Well, I mean, I've never been fired, so I don't know.
I've always been fired.
I have been, so yeah, I know it's not a good feeling.
I'm young. There's still time.
I've had very
Get
few
fired
jobs
at
that I
any
quit, but I've had a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to continue on with the damning evidence here. Sneha also claimed that one night while out with coworkers, this is again out at a bar, and I can't pin down what the sex of this coworker is, but one of her coworkers grabbed her inappropriately. I don't know what that means, whether it was a smack on the bottom or a grab on the chest or attempt to kiss. I don't know.
In fairness, it shouldn't matter, but it does, apparently, in this day and age.
Yes, it does.
If somebody says this person touched me inappropriately, that means that they felt violated, and it should be taken and reported as such. But hey,
Yeah.
that's just my opinion, man.
I'm not sure that I would actually go to the police and try to get the DA to bring charges against somebody who for just
Which is what
grabbing
she
me.
did.
Yeah, this is what
I
she
guess
did.
I might if it were a thing that had been happening a lot of time, if it were reoccurring, if this person was grabbing me and I kept saying like, hey, I'm not into that, hey, I'm not interested, hey dude, like calm down, back off, or chick, whatever, calm down, back off, all right, seriously, I'm gonna file a complaint next time.
Yeah.
That maybe would be the progression, but I would also mention that in my report. Say this has been a pattern of behavior. I wouldn't say this person touched me one time.
But did she? Is there any record that she ever took the complaint to HR?
The only record that I have found is the report that she officially filed with the police.
Well, you wouldn't report it to HR if you were out after hours with coworkers. It's not a workplace incident at that point.
But I think what Joe's getting at is if it was a workplace incident like you were talking about, then it would have been filed
it could have
in
just
HR.
been reoccurring outside of the workplace when you go out for drinks with coworker once a week or whatever.
And this guy or girl is always weird and attempting to grab you.
You wouldn't mention that to HR. There'd be no reason to.
No, but HR can't do anything if somebody's grabby off the grounds. That's outside of their realm.
Yeah.
They have no jurisdiction.
But so she filed this complaint finally.
She did. And the DA's office, after reviewing it, dropped the charge and turned around and they slapped on her a charge of filing a false complaint. or a false report. And they said, if you want to admit that this is not really what happened, we'll drop the charge against you. And she stood her ground and said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she landed herself in jail for another night.
That's kind of strange that they would lock her up in jail for a night for that.
Weird.
Because
I don't, again, this is one of those things where I can't get a hold of the court records, and all I've got is the family's accounting of it. But the point is, according to the NYPD, once that all went down, so we've got the night of the inappropriate grab, and then she gets in trouble for it all, she continued to go out and drink, but she started frequenting lesbian bars.
That makes sense to me.
yeah,
Well, I don't think that really matters much. I mean, her family has said, well, of course she went. This is where I get the impression that the grabber was a dude. Is she was going and hanging out bars that were full of women because there's no guys there to repeat that scenario. But
It's
that's
safer, yeah.
Yeah, she feels safe around other women, so
Yeah.
I'll just hang out and drink here.
Plus, some of the better bars in New York are lesbian bars, so,
Yeah. I mean, she went to some, they listed them off, and they seem to be pretty well known in the report that I was reading.
I've never been to any of those. But, yeah.
I've hung out in lesbian bars. I've hung out in gay bars. I mean,
Well,
it
so
doesn't
have I,
matter.
I mean, but not in New York.
No, I would be happy to hang out in any bar in New York. I still haven't been to New York.
What?
I want to go to New York, and I still haven't gotten to go to New York and hang out for a while.
This is the real intervention we're going to have after the show.
I think
Sweet.
maybe we should have done this show on location so you'd have an excuse to go to New York.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sponsors?
Oh, yeah, there's that, yeah.
Well, at this point in our story, if we think back to when there was that stuff about when she wouldn't always come home
Yeah.
and she would stay with family members.
Yeah.
Well, it then comes out that what was happening was that Sneha was going out and then staying at the homes of people that she met in the bar, specifically at these gay bars. Ron rationalized it away and said, well, no, it was a totally platonic thing. They would hang out and talk. They would listen to music all night.
Yeah,
like, there
sure.
was nothing sexual whatsoever going on here. And I could see that, but I also have to ask, wait, if she's suddenly hanging out, she's having such a good time with all of these other women who are also into women, maybe she realizes, wait, I kind of really like women.
It would also help explain the kind of, symptoms of almost mental anguish that someone might exhibit when they are realizing something large about themselves, like perhaps questioning their sexuality.
And there was talk that she
Realizing-
was experiencing depression.
Yeah, you maybe drink more, you get in fights, you exhibit behavior problems at work when you're realizing that this person that you thought you were this entire time, you become depressed. You're no longer the person you thought you were, particularly coming from an Indian background or a background that may be less welcoming of...
I was going to say, it's a very culturally rigid, I think, a rigid, do you know what I'm getting at? I can't think of the words here, but it's like you've got to hold certain track.
Yeah, of course. Morally rigid.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't think it's quite as bad as, like, say, Saudi Arabia. Or
Oh, no.
Iran.
And that's not to say that,
Yeah.
Indians as a whole, right?
Are
It's like, just like you can't
anti-gay,
say
yeah.
Americans as a whole. But some people are and some people aren't. And, you never know what background somebody comes from.
There's unfortunately more here.
Of course there
to
is.
throw mud on this poor woman. This one, her family has fought tooth and nail and denied. But according to the NYPD investigators, her brother John caught his sister and his then girlfriend in bed together at one point.
Well, okay. And the fact that they've denied it so hard, right, would maybe suggest that they weren't okay with her being gay. I think if you are a family that's okay with her being gay, you say, well, maybe she was. Maybe she was experimenting. That doesn't mean that she disappeared for any, other kind of reason than she disappeared.
Yeah. No, it's
You don't deny it like that.
No, well, that's the thing is that John has said, he's like, I never said that. I never actually even talked to the investigator who put that on paper.
Have they found the quote-unquote girlfriend at the time?
Yeah, that's the mother of his child.
They got married, right?
Yeah, they got married.
Did they talk to her?
Again,
Seems like that'd be a pretty straightforward...
That would be.
This is the frustrating part of this story that I've already said before, is that so many of the players have been insulated and kept away from the media and from people who are asking questions. And the one person, the investigator, who got in there, we can't see what he found.
Yeah.
So that's the part that drives me nuts.
There must be some hinky stuff in there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's such innocuous stuff, but they're just so afraid to let anything come out. I don't know.
I don't get it either, but yeah.
Regardless, the trouble that she was having when she was at Cabrini, the tardiness and the alcohol-related issues, that followed her to her new job.
Of course it did.
One of the things that she had to do when she was at St. Vincent's, she had to meet with a substance abuse counselor. She actually got suspended for missing an appointment with that counselor.
I wonder if they gave her the job at St. Vincent's on condition that she work on her problems.
Would not be surprised.
Yeah.
That could very well be it.
That she would say, hey, I got fired from my other job because of these things, and I really wanted to work on them, and being upfront and honest, and they appreciated that, and they said, all right, well, if you do counseling, then we'll...
Or she didn't hide it, and they called the other place, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, this is why we let her go, because, hospitals talk to each other. That guy killed like 24 people. Oh, yeah, we're not going to hire that guy.
Yeah, we called that guy the Angel of Death. That was his nickname. But I give him a glowing recommendation.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. No. But I mean, regardless, so far, the last 10, 15 minutes has been super uplifting. Shall we get into theories?
Yeah, I suppose. Why not?
Theory number 1.
Yeah.
She ran away. That's a theory.
Okay.
He ran off and joined the circus.
Not that. The theory goes that she wasn't happy, as we've kind of had a discussion here so far, is that she wasn't happy, and maybe the drinking and staying out at night, note without her husband, may have been a symptom of that, and the possible depression that we've touched on briefly might have been another symptom of that as well.
Yeah.
There are bits that say that the marriage wasn't all roses, and things between the couple weren't all great.
Well, they never are.
I was going to say, we've rationalized a number of things so far, and one of the things I can say is that I don't know any relationship that is perfect, and people who say they have a perfect relationship
are fat liars.
Are in denial of something. I mean, people are people, and there's always going to be some friction.
Yeah.
The other thing, as I've talked about before, with, things seem to be good, is who's telling the story.
Yeah, Ron.
Ron and her family. So we have one source of the information. The sheer coincidence of her deciding to run away the day before the World Trade Center attack, it's just too convenient for me. It's too perfect.
Well, it's not necessarily a coincidence, though. She might have been planning on running away, and then 9/11 happens, and she realizes, holy crap, I got a perfect excuse.
Or it doesn't even have to be a planning, like a months in advance situation. It could just be she sees this thing happening and realizes, I could disappear right now.
True.
And it would explain, right, they found all of her stuff was still in the apartment.
Everything. Her credit cards, her glasses, her ID, her passport, her driver's license and passport. So everything was left behind.
I don't know why her driver's license would be left behind if she was out drinking, but that's beside the point.
I can't see how you would go shopping without your ID.
You would need your ID and credit card, so I think it's probably not true that they were left at the apartment, but okay, fine. Even if they were, even all the better to disappear. If you have some cash that you got, who knows how, but you've got some cash.
Yeah.
And you just walk away from your life. You have some cash, you manage to get out someplace and I don't know, do something. I've obviously never tried to plan a disappearance, so
I would think that if you were planning to take off, you would maybe do a little noodling on the internet.
Yeah, I think
change your identity and stuff like that.
If you were planning. Again, that's that key part, right?
Yes.
It's that it wasn't just a runaway of advantage, if you will, right?
Yes, a great circumstance to take advantage of. Because the PI, Ken Gallant, he said that he went through her, or we've been told that he went through her computer and found nothing in her history on the computer to indicate that. Now, she might have been savvy enough to wipe her browser history.
Or use a different computer.
Yeah, do it at work occasionally.
Yeah, or the library.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways that it can be done, but none of this stuff is there. The thing, and I know that you're probably going to jump on me a little bit for this, Devin, but the thing that she did that makes me think that maybe she wasn't intending to leave is that she had gone and spent the day with her mother several days prior to that. And when she was with her mother, she had said, "This was great, and why aren't we doing this more often? Like, this was a great day."
Well, that's one of the problems I have with this theory. I don't think she ran away because it appears to me that she was close to her family, and even if she had a rocky marriage, I don't think she'd abandon her family. But the other thing is there's always a high bar for me in this whole thing about people disappearing. It depends on how much you're leaving behind, and she spent years and a lot of money getting a medical credential, which she would be throwing away.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't believe it.
I agree with you, but I will just say that people get sentimental when they're planning to leave, right? So, spending time with your mom and having not done that a whole lot and just saying, I just wish we would do this more often, doesn't necessarily mean, also I'm not planning to run away. But I'm with Joe on this one. I don't think she ran away.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that then makes us go to the next theory.
Yeah.
The next theory is that, in fact, she did die at the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Like I said before, the story of her running into the World Trade Center was made up by her brother. There is the footage of her in the apartment building entry at about the time that the plane hit. That kind of corroborates that maybe she did go and try and help and she was killed by falling debris, or somehow got into the lobby of the building and was killed when it collapsed.
Or ran into the South Tower. I mean,
Yeah.
There was a couple minutes in between.
Oh, yeah.
At least, right? I'm sorry, I don't remember. I was young. But there was time in between, so if the one tower's burning, you run into the other one to help people evacuate from it, and then that gets hit.
Yeah. Or
although I don't think she would have run into the other one, because at the time, when it was only one plane had smacked into the towers, everybody thought it was an accident.
True.
That's true.
It wasn't until the second plane hit that everybody started saying WTF.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's also the possibility in this theory that she did stay out somewhere else and stayed at somebody else's house that night, or somebody else's place the night prior.
Sure.
And was walking home.
Yeah.
So they lived only a couple of blocks away from the World Trade Center. So it's possible that she was an innocent bystander when the first plane struck.
Got hit by some debris.
And got hit by debris, and then eventually buried when the tower came down entirely.
Yeah. Or I'm sure there was a Starbucks in the. No, I mean genuinely, there were things in the tower too, right? So it's possible that she just happened to be in there doing something on her way home.
The Century 21 was across the street.
Yeah.
And I will admit, I didn't dive into this because it didn't key in until just this moment, is that there were people that could stay